Alright, so just some comments on, I'm going to put this at the very beginning of the video, and just some comments on and some reiteration on what this channel is about. I've had some recent comments on the last video I put out on the awards airline, and I wanted to address those comments. Apparently we have some people who are newer on the channel. They don't really understand exactly what this channel is about. I had someone complain that I didn't refinish the cabinet, I didn't clean the chassis, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, and my response to that is we don't fully restaurate radios on this channel. I do electronics work. I do not do cabinet work. I do not do restoration type work. The only thing I restore is the electronics. And people that send in radios for repair here are made aware of this. You may see me occasionally do something like that to my own stuff, but I don't do it to anyone else's radios that are not going to be here or be a part of my own collection. The only other thing I would say to that is there are plenty of other channels on YouTube for that kind of content. We don't do that content here, so you know, sorry you're disappointed, but there's plenty of other things to entertain you on YouTube. Alright, since we got our Montgomery Ward's airline over there working, I thought we'd start messing around with this Zenith here. This is a Zenith Model 6 Sierra 556, 6S556. It is obviously a console tube, 6 tube radio from 1940. And the tube lineup consists of a 7H7, 7B8, 7A7, 7B6, 6F6, that would be an audio tube, and a 6X5G. And again, it's from 1940. So this being a 6 tube set, it's probably one of their mid-range or lower end sets, I would imagine. The chassis number on this is 6 Alpha 05. So I'm not sure what all that chassis is used in. So anyway, let's have a look at it. Again, I got these two sets from a local guy who messaged me on Facebook, and these were his dad's, and they were stored up in an attic for many years, and I don't really know anything about them. He had discussed throwing these out, and during the period of time that we were talking, which was over several months, there's a couple 3 times that we talked over several months, he had discussed me fixing both of them and giving him one of them, which I never really agreed to, but I did say I would come get them if he was going to throw them out, and he said come get them, they need a home. So, but after doing this set, I think I'm going to give him this set, and I'm probably going to keep this set, since I supplied all the parts and did all that stuff to that one. But anyway, getting into this set, this is again a 6 tube set, and looks like it has the station buttons on it. So it has presets, I guess you want to call it. It looks like it goes from the standard AM broadcast band from 550 up to 16. And the shortwave band starts at about 5.5 and goes up to 18, which is kind of a standard thing they did back then. It's got a very nice, big, large dial to it. I do already know that these are missing. I'm not sure exactly what went here. I've seen the pictures, and you know, there's some kind of a light or something that goes in there, and those are missing, and the dial string on this one's broken. I have plugged this up briefly, and I just got a hum and really not much out of it. It did light up. It's about all I could get out of it. And this is the shortwave broadcast switch as it's marked here. Okay, that shows up on camera or not. This knob does not seem to move that switch, so I'm thinking this knob is stripped out. So we may have to do some kind of a repair or something on that so it'll function. The dial cloth, or excuse me, the grill cloth is in pretty good shape, and all the pieces are in it. The chassis here, all the tubes are here. Again, the dial string's broken, so I can't actually tune it from the front of the radio. It does have an internal antenna, and the speaker is there, and the speaker looks like it's in good shape, so that's definitely a good thing. Alright, so this is another set here that the cord got cut off of, and I just kind of patched that in there, so we'll get that replaced, but just for testing purposes I did put that, splice that cord together. As long as they don't touch, we're good. So anyway, not sure what this is for. Maybe some kind of an external antenna hookup, not sure. I can already tell this is going to be one of those radios, if it's inside like that. This is during the era where they started using rubber on the wiring, and the rubber just fell apart, and these wires are like that. So I'm not sure if all the internal wiring is like that or not, and I hope not, because that rubber wire is some bad news stuff. Alright, so I'm going to plug this up here and run it at a reduced voltage. See what we get. It's already coming on and humming. So pretty sure it's going to need filters. I think this is the tuning right here, which is broken. So we're probably gonna need to restring it. These feel like they're stuck. They're not pushing in at all. And again, this feels stripped. Let me see if I can reach back in here. I'm not getting anything out of it. I'm turning the tuner here, but nobody's home. Let's see. Dirty volume pot. I don't think this is turning. Let's see if I can get this knob off here. Yeah, that looks stripped out, and you can tell where it's been eating up the plastic. So let's see. Oh, it does work. That's pretty awesome. Well, let's see.
Simplify your life inside and out. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids. Now, make a face like it just smells something. And together we can.
In the car on the way to the party, or in the living room as you're wrapping presents.
Well, at least we know it works. I'm sure it probably needs a lot of work, but I mean, we know it works, and it's pretty awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this chassis out of here so we can service this radio. I'm probably going to pull the speaker you know, so I can work on it out of the cabinet. But in order to get the chassis out, it's the normal 4 chassis screws, 2 on each corner. This one only had 3, but there they are. And then your knobs up front, which you have the band knob that pulls straight off, but these have the captive screws in them, so you're going to want to remove these before they'll come off. Just so you know, so you don't break your knobs, because these knobs are unobtainium. And when you're removing your chassis, don't forget your antenna plug here just pulls out. It's a 4-pin plug. Alright, so here's our chassis. Pretty dusty. 6-tube chassis. So, with a power transformer. So the first thing I want to get done with this thing is to take care of the power cord issue. Apparently they have, this power cord came on here, I want to say, I think I probably, I believe this came on here, I don't remember, I believe so, but it might have had tape or something on, I'm not real sure, but anyway, I rigged it up so it'll work. But this thing is, you know, obviously we got this going on with, you know, super brittle rubber wire going bad, and then we've got, you know, this going into a cord, and I wouldn't really have a issue with just wiring this straight in there, but then we got this, and I don't want to go that route. We got this, you know, adapter thing they put on it, but that section is really short, so I guess I'm gonna have to come up with a at least a cord section for it, and maybe we can reuse this end or something. I'll come up with something. But yeah, that's the first thing I want to get done on here, and want to flip this over here and take a look at what we got going on up under here. Now it looks, right off the bat, it looks all original. I don't see any replacement capacitors right away. Interesting, they're still using dog bones by 1940, but they were. It looks like a really good high quality Zenith set to me. And it even looks like this could possibly be our original dual section filter capacitor here. We got 1 negative wire and two sections on the positive end, so that's definitely a dual section. I have not gotten the schematic on this set, so I don't know the values of this, and I haven't bothered to turn it around and look. It's probably on there, but yeah, you're seeing this for the first time just like I am. Okay, we got our power cord replaced. Found a brown modern polarized cord and wired it back up the same way it was, and so that should be good to go. Well, this is a little bit different. This filter capacitor that they have in here is a dual section 8 microfarad. You can read that upside down, 8 plus 8 at 450. But they have the 2 leads, the 2 positive leads going down to the same pin on the tube, and both wires are tied together. So I guess they're using this as a 16, I'm assuming. I mean, I would expect that this is a Sprague, so I would suspect that this is a replacement. I don't think the factory would have wired that in like that. And it goes to this red wire here that's, you know, soldered to the rectifier. So I would assume that they're, you know, this is supposed to be like a 16, but I'm going to have to get a schematic and see what's going on with this thing. Alright, so I had to pull this push button assembly thing out so I could get down into where the capacitor is at. Down here, this can capacitor. It's not humming, but I need to go ahead and change it because I don't know if you can see that, but there's some black goo leaking out of the bottom of them legs, and so I'm not going to chance this. That capacitor is as old as the radio is, and of course we have this crappy rubber wiring that's, you know, brittle, and you can see the pieces breaking off, and so we're going to have fun dealing with that. And we're probably going to end up having to rewire a lot of this crap in here. I hope not, but we'll do what we have to do. So anyway, this resistor here, I need to check that, make sure that's going to be okay. So anyway, it looks like what, a 220. Looks like a 220, so I'll have to check that and make sure that's in spec. But we're gonna have to unwire all this. This is the square, so it's the 5 microfarad, and then this is the triangle, which is a 15 microfarad. So I'm gonna have to get all that off of there and put it on a terminal strip. That way I can hook up a different capacitor, take that one out of the circuit. Alright, so I've got a piece of deteriorated wire there. This thing is pretty bad shape. It goes from this terminal strip with the resistor, the red resistor's at, and so we're going to go ahead and take this out of here. It goes to the speaker jack back here, and I know there's some, I'm not sure exactly if this wire carries high voltage, but there's definitely high voltage that goes to that electrodynamic speaker. So we need to get this out of here and replace it. I've already replaced this red wire that ran back over here that goes to this cap. I'm in the process of rewiring all that stuff, and this thing's falling apart, so I need to try to go ahead and get this replaced. The best thing to do with this rubber wiring on this stuff that deteriorates is leave it alone. If you don't need to touch it, just don't touch it, because it falls apart, and then you're going to have a shorting hazard. Like this yellow wire here, you know, it's, you know, and just working in this area, I disturbed this enough where I'm probably going to have to replace that. Alright, so I went out and checked the mail, and I got some replacement stock capacitors. I got some 4.7 and some 16 microfarad electrolytics, so we could finish putting in new filters for this radio. And I have taken the liberty to rewire some of those really bad wires that were in here. So we replaced this yellow wire here that was tore up really bad, this red wire, and this red wire here. Alright, so one thing I wanted to point out about this filter cap here is that it's it shares a common ground, but that common ground is not chassis ground. It's a floating ground, if you will. It uses the can's capacitor, or it uses the metal can as a conductor, but it is insulated from the chassis, as you can see. All these little points here are all that common negative, and the center pins are the positive, you know, part of the positive section of each of that capacitor. It's a dual section. It's a 15 and a 5 microfarad. So we wired our positive in here and then the negative to the can of that capacitor. Now the only thing, that capacitor is not in the circuit because we disconnected the positive side of that capacitor. So it's just using the can as conductivity to complete the negative circuit. Alright, so we're all done here. I had to replace this yellow wire and this red wire that runs away from the capacitor. Again, you know, really brittle rubber wiring. And so I did that, and we put in 2 terminal strips, one for the 4.7 which is basically your 5 microfarad, and one for the 15 microfarad section. We ran the positive sides of the capacitors to the terminal strips and the negative side back to the can of that original multi-section electrolytic. And the can is of that capacitor is not chassis grounded, so it has its own floating ground. So beware of that when you're working on radios. And guys, if I'm saying this, you know, and you can see it on the camera and it looks obvious to you, just a reminder, there is quite a few sight impaired people that are watching this channel, so that's why I'm you know, kind of stating the obvious, because we appreciate their views just as much as everybody else. Alright, so I got those filter capacitors replaced and they seem to be working fine. I went and replaced some of these coupling caps and bypass caps. But I think I'm getting to the point where I need to go ahead and get the dial strung so I can get this closed. The station changer or the presets or whatever, these things are kind of got some issues going on too, so I need to work on those. But I'm gonna go ahead and get the dial strung, and that way we can kind of move into this other mechanical issues with like this preset button mechanism here. It's sticking real bad. Alright, so we're going to need to remove this dial face so I can get access to that tuning capacitor, the wheel on there where the spring and all that stuff's at. Alright, so we pull the dial pointer off the front. Be very careful. And then your 2 dial lights will squeeze out of your dial face, and then you've got one screw down here, and then you've got 2 back here. You got one here and then one here. You need to remove those to get the dial face off. Alright, our dial face is off, and here's our spring with what's left of the tuning string. So let me see if I can figure out how this thing works. This is always a challenge of the mind. Alright, so not too bad. Just with the string, just 3 wraps around the bottom, and then you bring this one up and through, and this one just over and through, and that's it. There's really not much to it. It goes all the way closed and all the way open. So not bad at all. Works pretty good. Happy with that. We're gonna trim this up. Never hurts to put a drop of super glue on that knot to help it, you know, stay in place. Alright, I'm gonna throw this out there because there's always people that are a lot smarter than me in my audience, but what exactly is this? This goes down to the ground of this capacitor, which is the one I was explaining, that this, you know, is like a ground. The case of this is a ground network, but it is isolated from the chassis. And then we have these that run out from each, you know, lug. And then we have these. This is a, looks like a blue or gray wire, gray and blue, and then green and blue, and they come out and they just loop. They're not connected at the very end. I did untape this one to see how it was done, and they're not connected. They're just cut off and form a loop at the end. And there's actually little wire stays right here. These little wire stays are put in to hold them in place when the dial faces on. I don't know what that is. Honestly, I don't. It must be, I was thinking some sort of internal antenna, but it has a antenna plug on the back that's a 4-pin that goes to the Zenith wave magnet antenna that's inside the set, or inside the cabinet part of it. But I don't know what this is, but I'm going to replace it because this wire is like every other piece of wire in here. It's falling to pieces. So I'm going to see if I can find a couple, a green wire and a blue wire, and try and remake this and run it down in here and connect it up exactly the way it is. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to put it back the way it was. Maybe somebody in the audience will know. I think this will give you an idea of how bad this rubber wiring just falls apart. Okay, so I jumped ahead a little bit. I put the face and all back on and got that cleaned up. Got the face all cleaned up, and the wires redone here. Tried to keep them the same color. I did not have a gray wire, so I used that purple wire. It's the only thing I had. So we got that done, and then I went ahead and finished the rest of the pretty much the rest of the stuff in here that needed to be replaced, all the rest of the caps and stuff like that. So I've got it working. It plays pretty good. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at. I did clean the controls, the volume control, and the band switch. I had to clean those because they were a little bit on the scratchy side. Okay, so now we've got a problem with this. I got these buttons to move, but they're not locking in. And the problem is this little rod right here is spring loaded, and it's just not locking down in there. But if you actually manually hold it in, it locks the button in. See, the button's depressed now. So, and when you press it in, it's supposed to unlock it. It does, but the next button doesn't lock in. If you hold this down, it locks in. So the spring on this thing is worn out. Now this thing is not easy to take apart. I've kind of looked at it a little bit. And this is a return spring here. I tried oiling this and seeing if it would work a little better, but it doesn't seem to make any difference. This spring here has just lost its tension pushing down, and it's not allowing this lock bar to lock these things in. So this spring is weak, so I'm going to have to figure out some way to take this thing apart and get this spring out of here and either stretch it tighter where it puts more tension on it, or replace that spring. Alright, so I've taken this this unit apart, and the issue is to get all this apart, you take these two screws on each end off, and then this separates this front plate from the rest of it. Well, the problem is on that front plate we have all these variable capacitors and these coils back behind it, and the problem is we got all these little tiny wires on here that solder to each one of these lugs here, and I don't really want to mess with that. And so I thought about bending this, but you can't do that because it's got a wafer board on the back of it, and you'll break that. So the only other thing I can think about doing is popping off all these buttons here, these plastic buttons, and bending the back of it enough so each of these will pop out. Now I don't know if I can do this or not, or if it's going to work, because you got wafers on each one of these push rods here, and you got to watch out. I'm trying to get them out, but what I'm trying to do is create enough clearance back here so I can pop this rod out of here and pull it out the back. I mean, that's the only thing I can think to do, because you've got to get each one of these things out to get this lock bar out, or something, you know. Even if I get those out, I don't know if that lock bar will come out or not. It'll probably slide down enough. Maybe I can get it to slide down enough to get the spring out of the top of it. All I need to do is stretch that spring. Alright, so I managed to get each and every one of them little bars out with the springs. I had to bend this back, and I did manage to get them with some wiggling and pulling, and now that's freed up this lock bar. So let me I'm gonna see what springs I've already got, because I've got a box full of little small springs. See if we can find a little bit, you know, tighter spring or whatever, and maybe if not, let's see if I can stretch that one. Alright, so I found this spring. The only thing is, I'm worried that this thing might actually be too tight. It might actually be tighter. I did stretch the original spring out, is here, but that one's still taller than this one, even stretched out. And I put this in here and it feels a little on the weak side, so I think I'm going to insert a couple of bars and try to see how it works and see if that'll work or not. Okay, so I got it back together, and now we have too much tension, because when you press one in, when you press, it worked that time. Those two seem to work, but on some of these other ones, both of them stay locked in. Well, now it's going to make a liar out of me. See, there's both of these stay locked in. So let me see if I can work on this, because it seems like most of these are working now. There's something on these two are sticking. Maybe they're bent. Alright, stuck the original spring back in there. I tried it several other ways, you know, trying to see if these bars, these push bars, were bent or anything. It wasn't. It just had so much spring pressure downward that it just wouldn't, these springs couldn't overcome the pressure of the bar. So I ended up putting the original spring back in there that was stretched out a little bit, and they all work. So good to go for now. Let me finish buttoning this thing up.
Working midnight till
okay, so it's working. Got the push buttons working.
I could, hoping to
of our actions, and our actions were.
and an enigmatic new collection.
Said no.
What are you doing with that gun?
So those are all working, so that's a major accomplishment. So yeah, glad to have that going. And by the way, on this set, fully counterclockwise is automatic, which is your presets. In the middle is the regular tune-in shortwave or AM broadcast, and then all the way clockwise is shortwave. Alright, so there's 10. WWV is fading in and out. It's 10 right on the dot, so that's aligned pretty well. Alright, I went to go pull this tube out and broke this socket. It's completely broken, and I'm gonna have to replace it. Somebody soldered the center in here, and they soldered it to the tube. I guess they were doing something in here and soldered it to the lock. This is one of those Lochtel tubes. Anyway, I hate these tubes. And someone soldered something in the center, on the center pin lock part of the tube, and when I went to go pull it out, I was going to go check it, and it pulled the whole socket out. So I got to get that replaced. This is going to be a fun job here. Luckily, I've got an old Philco radio that has some Lochtel tube sockets in it, so I guess I'll be scrapping one of those. Alright, so what I normally do when I have to do stuff like this, I just draw my own diagram that lays out the wire colors and where they all go. And luckily there's really no components on this thing like any capacitors or resistors soldered directly to this socket, so I don't have to worry about denoting any of that. It's just wires that go straight from one IF to another. It's an IF tube. It's a 7A7 tube, so that we don't really have to worry about that. I have the schematic here for reference, but I just like to kind of draw something you know, a little easier, and then I took pictures. So that's the way, kind of the way to do this. I rarely ever had this happen, but these Loctile tubes and the sockets in this set kind of suck. They're really thin. They're just made out of that wafer material, like the wafer switches are. But the replacement one I got out of this Philco is a much better quality socket. This one here is much thicker and is made out of much better material than this crap they got in here. So, and you know, normally, I mean, you know, I've got nothing but praises for Zenith, but they did make some crappy tube sockets on this one. But I'm gonna, since I've got pictures and everything, I'm gonna start disconnecting all this stuff, and I'm gonna have to drill out those rivets in there. I don't know whether I'm going to do it from the bottom or the top. It'd probably be easier to do it from the top. But I'm going to drill those pins out and at least get the socket loose. And a lot of this stuff I'm going to have to end up rewiring. I'm going to try not to have to do any rewiring to the IFs, because I'll have to pull the IF out to rewire it. And so what I'm going to do is just cut the wiring connections and then just resolder them to the new tube socket when I get it in there. That's the best way to do it, with, you know, trying not to disturb the stuff as much as I can. But that white wire right there, I barely touched it and it fell apart, so we're going to have to replace that wire. And I don't know, I'm going to see what I can do, try and get by without having to replace all this wiring, because yeah, this rubber wiring, it just sucks. Alright, so that last drawing that I did of the tube diagram, this one was not correct. This is what I came up with. The keyway faces the other way. I had it turned this way and it goes that way. So this is what I came up with here. Pins 7 and 8 are ground. That ground wire goes to the middle where it was. This was actually somehow soldered to the actual tube, and that's what caused it to break. Then it goes from there over to pins 4 and 5. Number 1 is your heater. Number 2 is the plate to the second IF. The white comes from the 7B8 tube. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to look at the schematic, see what that does. And then we have our grid input from the first IF, which is a green wire. Alright, so we got that tube socket in, the new one, and I got it riveted in here and got it all wired up there. Let me, there's it from the top side there, and I've got a little hand riveter I use to rivet that, so turned out okay. So now the big question is, does it work? Let's plug it in and see if it works. Well, I must have did something right. It works. Alright, now we're past that hurdle. Now I can actually go back and check the tubes, which I'm probably going to do off camera because this thing's a pain in the butt to get the tubes out.
This is WCBS and WCBS FM HD2 New York.
Alright, got it playing pretty good. I think I'm ready to put it back in the cabinet. Alright, back in the case, and we're on shortwave.
Shows it is available for 35 British pounds. Now we go to...
Back on AM. WSM.
A shout out to Ray wearing he's a cook here.
There's 750 out of Atlanta.
Did you see me with the...
The entire height of the building, something he called completely unusual.
WCBS.
Favorite podcast player? Search for Commando with a K.
Local 1240. Local 1340. Alright. Alright, well there it is. It's playing again. Remember, these videos are not about a full restoration. I'm going to see if I can figure out what went here. Not sure exactly what it was, but there's some kind of piece of plastic or something decorative probably went here, and we'll see if we can source those. If not, it's not the end of the world. Still a pretty nice looking radio. The wood is better on this one than the other one. In pretty decent shape. Other than these little missing pieces, it's not too bad. Alright, appreciate y'all watching this, you know, fixing up this old Zenith. And catch you later.